Ora Nadrich, mindfulness author and columnist at DailyClout. I am super excited to talk with my guest today, Kevin D. Jenkins, who is a co-chair of the Zelenko Freedom Foundation and continues to keep alive the work of Dr. Vladimir Zelenko, who unfortunately passed away last year. By co-creating this foundation, Jenkins shines the light on the truth about medical practices and sectors of the medical community that Zelenko endeavored to share with those not being given access to all the facts. Jenkins is a true truth warrior and works to level the global playing field by exposing the hidden agendas, lies, corruption, and distorted versions of truth that continuously divide our communities. He is a regular on the public speaking circuit and has co-founded Urban Global Health Alliance and Freedom Travel Alliance. Hi, Kevin.
How are you? Thank you.
Welcome. I'm so glad that we could finally connect. I know that we were supposed to be at some of the same places at the same time, and that didn't happen. So here we are, and I'm really excited to finally be able to connect with you. So I want to jump in to your continuing the work of the remarkable, heroic Dr. Vladimir, also known as Zev Zelenko, who was a Nobel Peace Prize nominee and one of the doctors I happened to listen to when the world got turned completely upside down. And I know that he was truly committed to saving lives. I mean, this man was what a doctor should be, right? You know, full of integrity and so committed in the midst of the insanity that was going on. I knew that he was solely committed to saving people's lives, as you know. Tell our listeners how you got involved with Dr. Zelenko and how you're co-creating the Zelenko Freedom Foundation and what it's all about.
Well, you know, I've met Dr. Zelenko on the road. We were on the road. I call it, we were true road warriors, spreading the truth like a mantra. That's what he always talked about. You know, I always saw Dr. Zelenko as a bright North Star in the middle of a storm. And, you know, when he was passing and when he was sick, he wanted to fulfill his obligation to the world by creating this legacy, the Zelenko Foundation. He was very committed and concerned that the work continued. So when he called me up to talk to me about being a co-chair with Ann Vanderstill, who's dynamic, he said, listen, I want you guys to help me to fulfill my legacy when I'm gone. And that's what we're truly trying to do. Building out future leaders in the future, looking at what kind of emerging companies can help us move out of sick care to well care. How do we change the culture of our health in our country? What can we do through this foundation to continue to keep fighting the tyranny of our time, but to also grow out a new world for ourselves, you know, expand our mind, expand our thoughts, really getting people to understand that they're their best doctors, that they're the ones that should be in control of their lives. So when he asked me to do it, I had said to him, I said, you know, Dr. Zelenko, I have a lot of jobs. He says, well, get rid of those jobs and come and do this for me. And I thought that was a very interesting way to get me to do it, because I really was kind of contemplating not doing it, because I've been traveling for over 600 and some odd thousand miles now. It went from 300 to 600. I was working at the Urban Global Health Alliance. We built that out 2.5 years ago. Then we started looking at what kind of business models we can create to move the country forward, so we won't be trapped in this mired existence of corporatocracy and all the things that they wanted to do in controlling our lives. So, you know, coming from a family that's always been socially motivated, trying to change the world through housing development, community development, economic development, understanding politics, you know, I just knew that because of me running my family foundations and growing up in the nonprofit sector, I could be of some benefit. But I just think that, you know, committing myself to it, I thought was an act of spiritual alignment, because him and we always talked about how can we build a better, healthier world. And that's what I'm motivated to do. You know, I'm doing so many different things now. And I'm working over here helping Cardio Miracle right now build out their model for heart care. I'm talking about how do we create new language, love language in the Black community and the minority community around their health. So my life is in full action. So you will see me everywhere, taking all of the understanding that I have to work with people to build out a model where we can free our minds and free our souls and expand ourselves in the world and take more control and more power of ourselves so we can be a better society. Because I believe a healthy community, a healthy person leads to a healthy society. So it was a perfect fit for me.
Wow, Kevin. I mean, that's extraordinary because you're right. If you just devoted yourself full time to the Zelenko Foundation, you could be as busy as, nonstop, if you will. And the
Yes.
fact that you've got it going in all these different areas, and what I'm hearing about this, it's really creating a new vision for a new world.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Would you say, I mean, we're at a real pivotal time in our history. And it's almost like there really is a call to action. It's an urgent time where you're needed to do all these different things because we're in an unprecedented time in history that, you got to do what you're doing. And I can see why you're so busy because it's like we're in a war, wouldn't you say? We're kind of in a war right now.
We are in a war. We're on a spiritual war right now. I see the books that are behind you, Time to Awaken. This is the great awakening. This is the great God conscious moment. This is the great connection moment. This is the great finding your power moment. This is the great deep soul moment. See, it's not about just fighting against these monsters, but it's about finding ourselves, finding our way back to God, finding our way back to that God spirit, finding that way back to our God courage so we can fight against the tyranny of our time. I think what's happening is we continue to fight against this tyranny because we never finish the job. We always go back to sleep. We clam onto a little victory here, but this is a big deal now. They're going after our children. When you go after our child, you kill the son. When you go after a child, you kill our hope. So we have to take this seriously. This is not about small victories. This is about winning everything for God. God's great grand design, our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our soul. It's just not about the politics. It's about how do we guide ourselves out of this mess that we've created. We've created this mess. I want people to know at home, we did this to ourselves. The government is what we have allowed to happen. These corporations, we allowed to happen. What's happening in our universities, we allowed to happen. We have to strip ourselves of all of the stuff that we were taught and find our way back to the truth. And I think that's what my work is all about. My work is about building the new future for our family, for our children, and for children to come after us. I have a brand new grandchild. Her name is Brooke Gabriel Soroyan, and I take that serious. I have 2 grandsons that I just love to death. I don't want them to be slaves. I don't want to create an environment where the modern day slavery exists. So, I teamed up with Bobby 2 years ago to create this documentary, Medical Racism. And I think I've spoken to maybe 1.5 million people in the last 3 years. I've traveled over 600 and some odd thousand miles. I talk to people and I try to get them to capture their strength and their courage and use the hope that they have for the world to take back their power. And that's what this is all about to me.
It really is, Kevin. My book, Time to Awaken, I never had any intention to write another book so quickly after my last book. And I felt called. I do feel it's a divine calling. And that this book chose me and said, write me now, because we are really at the precipice of this. We are in the midst of a great awakening and at the precipice of creating, not a new world order as here being said by the World Economic Forum. We're creating our new world, don't you think? And the very thing that you're talking about, all the ways in which we have created what we've created and now have an opportunity to start afresh. But, it's challenging because, as you say, I think you used the word monsters. Did you say monsters? Did I hear you say monsters? Because I don't want to misquote you.
No, they are monsters. They are very.
We're up against. We know what we're up against, right?
That's right. We do. But here's the exciting thing. I would have never met you if there was no spiritual alignment. I would have never met the beautiful people in the Northern Plains, the beautiful people in the Midwest, the beautiful people in every city in this country. I've been to every part of this country. I have spoken to people in pizza parlors. I've spoken to groups of 50. I've spoken to groups of 10,000. I've spoken to groups of 5,000. My job is to be an evangelist for truth. My job is to be an evangelist for hope. My job is to show strength. My job is to be a real man in action. And, we have to learn that when we go through this experience, that we have to finish it. We have to take that deep breath and we have to keep moving. My mother lives in New Jersey, and I went to visit her when I was home. She wasn't feeling well. She was sick. And she was talking to me. She says, how do you do what you do? And I looked at her and said, how did you do what you did to raise me? And she said, you know what, Kevin? There you go. Yeah. I get it. And because, that took a lot for her. My mother and father were great human beings. I come from a very good family, but they trained me to understand power, understand business, understand what the world should be, and to always stand up against the tyranny of my time, just like Martin did, just like Malcolm did, just like Ida B. Wells did, just like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. does, just like John F. Kennedy does. We have been trained in my household to not only stand up against the tyranny, but understand how to eviscerate it and build new. So, in my life, building housing for the poor, building community opportunities for middle-class families and people, that's all I've done all my life. So my family is watching me do this, and they're saying, okay, you've up-leveled the game for us now. So we all have to be involved in this one way or another. We all have to stand up against the tyranny of our time.
And they're behind you on this, because I know this is
my family's
that's which is really fantastic, because it's caused a lot of polarization, a lot of estrangement, a lot of families to not really be on the same page about what's going on. It's been heartbreaking for a lot of families. We've been trying to wake everybody up, even our own family. When the minute we saw the way this whole thing was coming down, and we knew that we are in the midst of a major takeover here, of trying to commandeer us and control us, and the tyranny that you have on your T-shirt today. And yes. we were screaming on the tabletop, saying, wake up, see what's going on. So you're fortunate that you have a family that supports you, and so many other families didn't have that.
Well, I'm the leader of my family. First of all, my father left me to be the leader. So as the leader, I have to sit down and explain to them that this is nothing new to us. We've seen this ugliness before, but now it's global at another scale. Now the tentacles are deeper. Now the root of it is, you can see it. That's the magical moment about this, that we're now talking about it all. Right. So when people say to me, well, Kevin, they said you're anti-vaxxer. I said, absolutely anti anything that takes away from my freedom, anything that takes away from my hope, anything that enslaves me. I embrace all of it. I don't run away from it. I embrace I'm anti anything that demonstrates that they want to control who I am as a human being. So the corporatocracy, I'm against. I'm anti that. I'm anti the World Health Organization. I'm anti NIH. I'm anti any elected official that passes a policy to strip me of my human dignity and my human rights. We should embrace it. We shouldn't run away from it. When I see people run away from that, I'm like, what are you running away from that for? You should embrace it. I am anti anything that strips me of my humanity. And that's what we should be doing, not running away from it and running right into it.
But it's very hard for a lot of people to, now that so much of the truth is coming out, it's not only the Great Awakening, it's the Great Reveal. Do you know?
Right.
Now a lot of truth is coming out, and it's not easy for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. It's very hard for, I would say, most people to accept the fact that they've been lied to by by even our government, by the health organizations, by the president of a country. It's very hard for people to accept that these constructs, these systems have failed them. Do you know?
Well, it's not, I've come to this realization. It is not for everybody to understand what you and I understand. God chose us for this moment. When you were coming through your mother womb, no matter what age you were marked for this moment. We are people of the light. So the people of the light were always going to be standing up against the truth. It's not for everybody to know. It is our job to fulfill our obligation to the truth. It is our job to fulfill our obligation to the light. It's our job to fulfill our obligation to every child in this country to protect who they are as human beings. So I really don't worry about, I don't even think about it, that people might not understand or people might not get it, because maybe it was not for them to get. Maybe it was just for us to get. I don't believe that. So when you do that, you stay in the right spirit when you do that.
Yeah.
You don't worry about that. God, listen, in Jesus's time, in Joseph's time, in Moses' time, I'm quite sure they were looked at as being strange individuals, right? And there were groups of people that followed them, and they were said they were zealots and they were crazy and something was wrong, but we're still talking about them today.
You're exactly right. So they must have been doing something right?
That's right.
Listen, I agree. My whole book is about trying to help wake people up. So I can only do what I can do, and everybody's on their life journey at their own pace, at their own time, and their own readiness or lack thereof. It is sad to see those that are going to be sucked into the lies. And unfortunately, we're protecting our children at all costs, because with all the truth that's coming out about the vaccines now, and them not working, the sad thing is they're still trying to push it on the kids. I mean, it's just downright evil.
But we haven't finished the job. This is what my concern is. My concern is we're grabbing onto these small victories, but we need to be focused on several things. All of these captured agencies, they need to be annihilated. They need to be off the table. FDA, the CDC, the NIH, the WHO, the World Economic Forum, all of them need to be shut down. See, until we finish the job, they will always reorganize themselves. Evil always reorganizes itself. So the same way we forced and talked about the vaccines, we need to take the same energy and go right back out there on those streets and close those places down. Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, they are tools of evil. And you know what? If we don't do that, we have to blame ourselves again, because we always do this now. We always do it. I believe that the job is far from over, and we need to take this serious, and we need to bond back together and go back out there and finish the job.
Absolutely. And the way they're putting those photos of those that have died from the vaccines on the Pfizer building, I mean, that's what it's going to take. It's going to take each and every one of us, as Bobby always talks about, the civil discourse. And that doesn't have to be violent. That could be out of love. Civil discourse means that we're speaking the truth, and we could be coming from a place of love. You're right. The job is far from over.
Well, you know what, though? This has been one of the most peaceful movements of our time, the most peaceful, the most powerful movements of our time. This is the civil rights movement of the 21st century, the real civil rights movement of the 21st century. And I can really elaborate on that. I'm well versed in African history, Black history, European, global history. So I understand these movements and these moments in time. But this is one of the most peaceful movements ever in the history. And we shifted the world. We shifted it. Those mama bears started it. Talking about autism. Now, look what the world is talking about now. They warned us. That's why every time I get on the stage, I thank them for embracing me and teaching me and helping me to understand what my position and what my place in the world is, to be able to assist them to fight against the tyranny of our time. That's how I look at it.
Do you feel hopeful? You sound extremely inspired and very focused and very devoted. People ask me, do I feel hopeful? I do feel hopeful, because I think we're that powerful.
Well, think about this. 3.5 years ago, I was sitting at my dining room table with a glass of wine saying, what in the hell have I done to myself? Like, this is it. This is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. This is not what I signed on to. Now I'm sitting in my house in New Jersey, and this young man, Jamel Holly, he was an assemblyman, comes to me and starts talking to me about 10,000 people being in Trenton, New Jersey, at the State House, fighting against the tyranny of their time, fighting for their religious freedoms, right? Fighting for religious exemption, for the rights for their religious exemptions. I looked at him like he was crazy, because I was exhausted. I didn't want to do much more. I wanted to play golf. I wanted to find what my next big project was going to do so I can make some more money. And he told me to look at this bill, and I'm not looking at it, but okay, go upstairs and get a highlighter. I did. And I looked at the bill. I said, oh, this is a very discriminatory bill. I said, this is what I would do, because I worked in government. I was the chief of staff. I mean, I've worked all inside government, lobbying, from the top to the bottom. So I said, this is what I would do. And so he's like, oh, okay. He goes, he wins the day, because he was just brilliant, and he was committed, and he cared about children. So he comes back to me 2 days later. He said, hey, Kev, I'm trying to get the Black Caucus to come to talk to Bobby Kennedy. I cracked a joke. What Black Caucus? There's no such thing. I said, but, Gail is powerful. Talk to my wife. She'll bring everybody in the room to meet Bobby. Bobby, Gail, and Jamel had this meeting with a group of leaders around the state. And Gail was blown away. My wife was blown away that she was not aware of all of the work that she's done. She was not aware of this issue. Mm-hmm. So she comes back. She says, Kevin, this was a very powerful meeting. You should really take your time to study it. I said, no, I'm not. That's good. That's for you to do. Now, just think about this. Jamel comes to my house the next day. He says, Kevin, I'm going to Connecticut. I want you to get in the car with me to go hear this presentation. I said, I'm getting ready to go play golf. I said, I don't want to do. So my wife comes downstairs, Gail Cheneyfield Jenkins. She says, you're going to go. You need to see this.
Good for Gail.
I need you to see this, right? This is a true story. So I go and I see Bobby's presentation. I'm very quiet. I'm like, because now I just did several hospital acquisitions. So I'm like, wait a minute. oh, okay. And so right after that, I meet Tara Thornton and Susan Sweeten, and we start talking about how do we build an infrastructure of an institution to get the word out across the country. So we came up with Urban Global Health Alliance. And after that, that's it. That was it. I think they were used as vehicles to get me off the bench to go fulfill my obligation to God and my obligation to my family, my obligation to the world. And I'm truly committed. Until I die, I will never stop doing this work at any level. And from a business perspective, I'm now trying to translate all of my business know-how and my business skills into the other place where I think we're going to be to build out into the new world.
Absolutely. I mean, I do think that we are called and we hear the call, do you know, because when I had my first event for Bobby, it was really solely about censorship. I saw him deplatformed on Instagram and I was outraged. I said, something very dark is upon us because
Well, just
we're in America and we're being censored and canceled. There is something seriously coming down the pike that we need to pay attention to.
Well, I just saw a Twitter, Christiane Northrup, who's my dear friend, just sent me something on Twitter, Matt Taibbi, where Financial Times was talking about all 12 of us, because I'm on the Disinformation 12. now, think about this for a second. I wanted to say from Disinformation 12. Now, I don't play in social media space. I'm just too busy. But at the time, I really was not engaged in social media. I had some social media. Now, at the time, I think I might have had 300 Twitter friends, maybe 3,000 Facebook friends that took me like 10 years to get, because I'm not in that space. And then all of a sudden, I get up in the morning, I get a call from my mother on the road. She says, Kevin, she says, you're all over the news. I said, oh, really? That's not new. That's not new. We're a political family. I mean, that's not new. She says, but Kevin, they're talking about you at the White House. I said, oh, really? So now think about this now. Kevin Jenkins from Newark, New Jersey, I'm all over the news. I'm being talked about at the White House. Let me tell you what I told my mother. I said, Mom, let me tell you why they're talking. Let me tell you why I'm on that list. I'm on that list because I'm talking to people outside of this place. I'm talking to people in small towns in Texas, small towns in Boston. So I knew why I was put on that list, because I was speaking to people like you. So I started laughing. I said, well, we must be doing well, Ma. I know we put you on a list like that. She said, you're not concerned? I said, I'm excited. I said, this is great. I said, I love this kind of stuff. I wasn't worried. That's why you never see me talk about it. I'm like, that was great. If that's how you want to play, I know politics. I know business. I know half of those people that work on Capitol Hill. I said, so you want to play that game? I could do that any day. And I've been having it all.
Wow. They really play dirty, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
I mean, I think it's an honor now, with everything again about the great reveal, to have called, one of the misinformation dozen. I would wear it proudly like a badge.
I do. I love it. I love it. Think about this. My grandchild, my baby girl, my grandsons that are 18 and 13 are watching me work for people. I want them to learn that from me, like I learned it from my family and my community. That's why I'm so proud, because they're going to get up one day and say, that's where my grandfather was. He was fighting for us. He stood up for us in the time of this storm. Yeah. He helped to renew the world. He helped to plant seeds of rejuvenating the world. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm very, very happy about all of it. I embrace it all. The pain, the horror, the great moments. I embrace all of it, because you can't do this unless you embrace it all.
You're
and
right.
So in those dark midnight hours, I have this song, in the midnight hour, in the midnight hour, when you're in the room and you're crying, you're trying to figure this out. That's a deep soul work that we have to do. So in the midnight hour, I'm talking to God. In the midnight hour, I'm talking to my grandmother, Lily Mae. In the midnight hour, I'm trying to find my right pathway to get this work done, So in the midnight hour is where I do my work.
You're gonna make me cry, Kevin, because I don't want to cry. This will be the first that I've cried on my interviews for DailyClout. But my father lost his whole family in the Holocaust. And I know, we know what's moving through us, Kevin. We know the voices, the ancestors, the heritage, the lost ones that we will never forget. And we are not standing idly by this time around. We are not going to stand idly by, and I think, what you're talking about, me writing this book, it's like, I don't think they know what they're dealing with. I really don't.
Well, I think you're right. I think they underestimated us from day one. You know, I tell my friends all the time, I said, listen, you have to move past your fear and you have to work towards the light. You have to work and walk towards the light. And I think what has happened in my personal life, the love that I have for my family, the love I have for my children, the love that I have for this world has changed me as a human being. I think this moment should transform us. I don't think this moment, it should not be about winning and losing. It should be about transformation. Yes. And that's where I'm at in my life right now. I have been transformed into the light. I have found my God courage. I have found my God consciousness. And I am going to run through this world like on fire. And I'm going to work every day to build a new world for our community and people like you and connect with people all around the world. And I take that very, very seriously. I was telling a buddy of mine, Martin Luther King, we always talk because when we were younger, we were Malcolm X zealots because we love Malcolm X. We know the true Malcolm X, not the one they sell you on TV. Right. But at the end of the day, I studied under some of the greatest minds of our time. But Martin Luther King was something unique. When I was speaking at the monument in January last year in Washington, I talked about reclaiming Martin's dream. Martin's dream, what was that? A place where we could all be free, a place where we can all celebrate our faith, a place where we can all hold our families, a place where we can all be together no matter what our color is. Because this is not about race, this is not about power, this is about control. So we have to find our way back to love, because I believe if we find our way back to love, love wins. You see, and that is where I'm at. I don't think people really understand me and where I'm at in this space now. The technical conversations I can have every day. I could build a building. If I could build a building, I could do anything, right? So, I mean, so for me, it's deeper than that. We have to do some deep soul work, because if we don't do it, we're going to find ourselves right back here again.
Absolutely. It's really, wow. You know, and I think about that I'm living in a time where we are, what you just said, to hold the vision that we are one. You know, you talk about Martin Luther's, I have a dream. You know, just that line alone, I have a dream, you know, that we can dream of what is possible is so powerful. And I think at this time that was deliberately intended to polarize us. And that's not what we're about. We are about to be, you know, we're meant to be united. We're all God's children, do you know? And to think that narrative of trying to keep us polarized has been, they've been trying to force its way down our throats through this tyranny that we're witnessing today. And that love is that threatening. Love is really that threatening. Imagine that. I mean, wrap your head around the fact that what is most pure and most divine is threatening.
Yes. But think about it. We're all talking about it more now. You know, they try to disconnect us, but we're finding our way back. That's why every time I finish speaking, I have people get up. This is what I do after every speech. I ask them to get up. I ask them to take a deep breath, right? And I ask them to hug each other and find their God consciousness.
Beautiful. That is where it's at. Wow. You are one powerful light of inspiration. I'm loving this. So let me ask you, where do you think we're heading with medical freedom? Where do you think it's going to go? Where do you see this going?
Well, I think medical freedom will be a fight that we're going to be having for the rest of our lives now. I mean, I don't think medical freedom, as we started this conversation, it was about fighting against this experimental biologic. But now we're actually fighting for all of it. So it's medical freedom, it's a freedom to breathe, a freedom to love, a freedom to connect, the freedom to lead. I mean, we're going to be, freedom now is like, it's like implanted in our consciousness, because now we know what it looks like. We know what it smells. We actually have not been free for over a century. I mean, so think about it. So now we're finding our way back to what true freedom is. And that is your connection to one another. That is your connection to what the universe is telling us to do, because I think God is testing us now. I'm gonna tell you, God has a very interesting sense of humor. So he's saying, okay, now I've gone through this with you, this cycle with you over and over again. Now, this is your final chance to prove to me that you respect and love that grand design, that beauty that I gave you in your body, that beauty that I gave you in your mind, that beauty that I gave you when you came to your mother's womb, that beauty that I gave you when the sun rises and descends, that beauty that I gave you when you love your woman or love your man. I mean, God is saying, listen, this is it. We're not giving you another shot here. So we better take this serious. So medical freedom is now expanded into a global conversation of what freedom really, really is. So we got one shot here. I don't think we come back after this if we don't get this right.
Oh, Kevin, I am so there with you. And you're right. It's freedom across the board. We are fighting. I feel like every day we're waking up now and we're fighting. You know, it's like, you know, lift yourself up by your bootstraps, go back out there and keep on fighting.
And that's what we have to do.
You know, and there are days where I have, we all have our moments. Well, we all have our, I'm very contemplative. I go inside. I'm very much a believer in the inner journey and talking to divine source. And I think to myself, why is every day a fight right now? Because it's meant to be. And I think of the words of Christ, forgive them for they know not what they do. We can't do that anymore. We can't be forgiven for what we do not know what we're doing. I don't think Jesus meant it that way. I don't think he meant, we've misinterpreted those words. What do you think? What do you think it means, Kevin?
I think Jesus was saying, forgive, but let's evolve through that. See, what you take his words and forgive them for not one. No. I think he's saying something else. Forgive them, but let's transform them. Forgive them, but let's give them hope. Forgive them, but let's give them courage. So I will never have to be able to do this again. See, we take his words and we work them into magical places just for us. No. I don't believe that. I don't believe any of that. I believe he's saying, forgive them for they know not what they do, but give them enlightenment, reawaken them, give them the spirit. That's what I believe he said. I believe that. And I think that if that was not the case, we wouldn't be having these conversations right now.
When you hear people say, Kevin, I didn't know, and I want to have compassion. I want to come from a place of compassion. There was that whole talk Naomi Wolf and I talked about. That article was written in The Atlantic about let's go straight to amnesty. Let's go just straight to amnesty about all of the things that a lot of people suffered through, as we know. I mean, we cannot not acknowledge that people were fired, their livelihoods were taken from them. All those nurses that worked so hard, the pilots, the truckers, all the workers that just they believed in bodily autonomy. They felt that they had the right to choose what they did and did not want to put in their body and didn't feel that it was anybody's right. It's their sovereign right to decide for themselves. And so when you hear people go, hey, I just didn't know. I didn't know, so I did what I thought I was supposed to do. For those of us that we didn't adhere to that. We didn't go along with that program. We said, I'm not going along with anybody else's program to tell me what I have to do with my being.
Well, I think this was a teachable moment for all of us. Listen, there are a group. Let me just go with the I didn't know thing. Let me just stay there for a second. About maybe 6 months ago, maybe 7-8 months ago, I was on the phone with one of the young men I mentored, and I was furious about people not knowing, maybe a little longer than that. And he said, Uncle Kevin, they're not supposed to know. You were chosen to know. Your job is to get them to understand why they should want to know. And I was floored. I was like, wait, that was really good, young man. I said, I love you for that. But here's the other part. There were people out there in the world that were coerced, and we should care for them and we should love them. And we should try to help them to heal their bodies. But then the people that weren't coerced, the people that took the position that we were something dirty, that we were so horrible, that we were the meanest people on earth, that we were making them sick. Well, we should pray for them and hope that they learn from this experience, but I doubt it. I doubt it very seriously, because their minds have been so morphed. The mind virus has captured all of it. I don't think they will ever change. I think they will go to their graves thinking that they were right because they're not connected to the universe. These are godless people. The people that are still out there selling this lie, the people that are out there saying something's still wrong with us. Those are godless people, and we need to leave them where they are. But remember, those godless people will pop up against us again if we don't crush them. See, I'm a warrior now. I shouldn't be in my warrior phase now. I should be out of my warrior phase now, but I'm trapped in it until we get this. So you go from all of these phases as men. You know, you go through your wild phase, you know, you go through your warrior phase, you go through your reflective phase. I'm 60 years old. I should be reflecting now. I shouldn't be a warrior now. I should be somewhere like reflecting. So I'm stuck in warrior mode for a little while. But I'll get out of it sooner than later. I just want to go by the ocean and like sit there and like have a good glass of scotch and just
Oh
go.
my God, you are speaking exactly how I felt. I said, you know what? I've spent my days a lot different than I have in the last 3 years. You know, it's been pretty intense. When you're a truth seeker, it's an intense ride for sure. Do you know?
But you asked a question about, I can't remember how you phrased it, but I have more hope than I've ever had before. When I first started on this journey, I didn't quite see it, but I can tell you after traveling as long and as far as I have, I got to tell you, it's not as bad as you think it is. People are really quietly waking up. People are really starting to ask questions. People are saying, why did I put that in my body, Kevin? How could I have made that mistake? I mean, you got to hear the stuff that I hear out there. You know, not just the horror stories, but how can I get better? What happened? Why did I listen to those people? I was talking to a group of Black Americans some time ago, and this young man got on this whole discussion about racism. I bust out laughing. I said, what are you talking about? He said, well, Kevin, what do you mean? I said, well, explain yourself to me. I said, did you take the experimental biologic? He said, yes. I said, what are you talking about racism for?
Wow.
Dr. Fauci is a white man running the NIH. White men, white women. So just think about what I'm saying to you for a second. So you don't get the right to talk about structural racism and systemic racism and racism. Don't come here with that con job. And everybody around the table just bust out laughing. They was like, Kevin, we never thought about it that way. I said, because you have been fed a bunch of garbage all of your life. I am not a victim. You are not a victim. Victimhood is a commodity in this country, and Black Americans have been eating at that trough for decades. And it's time for us to break away from that. My family, my father and mother did not raise a victim. They raised a Black man. They didn't raise a victim. They raised a leader. And my brother and sister and all of my nephews and cousins, we are leaders, right? Whether you like them or not. They're going to lead when it's time to lead. And so when I hear Black Americans continue to push this mantra of racism out there, I'm like, explain yourself. Tell me why you feel that way. And you know what? The majority of the time when I ask them that question, they cannot answer the question because they have Black Americans have been the proxy for all other groups to gain power while they still are eating at the trough of victimhood.
You know, Kevin, I really believe asking questions that really stop people in their tracks. You know, in Time to Awaken, I say, for those of you that believed in the science, I asked 7 questions. Tell me what the science is. And people go, I go, is the vaccine the science? Tell me what's in the vaccine. Well, I don't, you know, it's like, you just ask them very straightforward, logical questions about everything and anything. And that's going to stop people right in their tracks because they're just on automatic. They're thinking on automatic.
Well, we look, the TV that we had in our houses to entertain us stopped entertaining us a century ago.
Yeah, that's for sure.
I mean, you talk about mind control. You talk about mind control. I don't even watch TV anymore. I mean, my wife and I were joking. She's like, Kevin, we never turn on the TV. I said, that is the devil's tool now. So when we turn it on, we're very specific about what we watch. You know. And no, I always tell friends of mine, this is a very intimate conversation. And my buddies, we always talk. I said, we went from Bill Cosby, family, integrated family, and down to reality TV. Come on, folks. We went turning on our TV with Black kids going to college. Come on, folks. Now we got reality TV. Now, you understand that was all by design. So if you turn on Fox, you only see Black boys with guns, Black mothers training their kids to be drug dealers. This is the image. We are now a part of a sub culture, right? That's replaced the real Black culture of Harry Belafonte or Nina Simone, or, you know, that was culture. Or, you know, Harry. When I grew up, that's what I grew up. They even changed the frequency of the music. So if you see how the kids do all of this, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
Wow.
We got to pay attention to the subtleties.
That's right.
And then what they do is, and if they don't like you, they destroy you.
That's right.
And when they destroy you, you know what we do? We jump on that and say, oh, he must have done it. Never realizing it was to get rid of the positive narrative to shift you to the negative narrative.
Right.
See, this, you got to look deeper into this. That's why I say you got to do more soul work. So I said, think about it. Mother and father on TV, family, grandmother, grandfather, you know, educated, you know, think about it now. And
then a family unit,
Then creates a show about going to college. HBCUs had more Black kids going to college in that time. And then we went right to reality TV. Come on, folks. See, my parents taught me to look deep in, and my training taught me to look deep in. And I don't read what the New York Times said. Look, in my household, I had the New York Times, the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, Vanity Fair on my dining room table. I don't have any of it on my dining room table anymore.
Me too.
I don't have any of it.
Right.
All of the great journalistic tools, I thought they were important. It was all propaganda.
Right. Right. You know, I mean, it's true. And what's happening, what's interesting about the whole explosion on social media, you know, as much as the censorship is trying to stop people from speaking the truth and connecting with each other from all over the world, those messages are leaving far too fast. They can't control that. So we're communicating in a whole new way that they really can't stop. And we're sharing information with one another that they can't stop us from sharing, that we're not watching on your local news or any of these propaganda news journals and, you know, news media.
You're the most powerful voice in the world right now. Right now, you. I could tell you, Joe Rogan, all of these great Christian. I talk to Christiane Northrup practically every day. Right, she's my guidepost. You know, I talk to my mom. I talk to people, and we communicate because I can only communicate with a certain group of people. Because if you're not dialed in, we cannot talk. You know, we just cannot.
Okay, is that not a little challenging? I have to say, what I say in my book, In Time to Awaken, and Naomi Wolf and I were talking about, I said, you know, it's like we're living in a parallel universe. It's like we've got one reality, and then, you know, which I call the, you know, and this isn't judgment. I'm just saying there are those of us that are awake and the ones that are asleep. And so it's getting harder to kind of, even though I'm coming from a place of compassion and love, we're able, like I think those of us that are really, you know, on it, we're able to finish each other's sentences at this point. I also think we're able to look into each other's eyes and recognize each other.
Right. The sun is bright on us. We just have to continue to keep seeking God's face. See, when you seek God's face, right, you find your God consciousness. And when you find your God consciousness, you find your God courage. We have to seek God's face.
You've got a lot of pearls, and I see that the clock is ticking. You know how that goes. And I know so many things I want to talk to you about. You know, there's so many great things on the Zelenko website. I am concerned about the children, the next generations to come, so that they don't get swept up in the illusions and the lies and the deceptions. And so to really support our kids, I have a just turned 30-year-old and a 23-year-old. You know, they're not as hyper vigilant about focusing on the things that we're aware of. And if we give them too much information, they want to tune us out, do you know? So when I looked at the foundation, the website, and I see that you've got things like community development and Join the Future of Freedom and, you know, all the things that the foundation wants to do. And even in the area of technology, I just want to throw that in because, you know, I did some research on AI and transhumanism. We know what we're up against here. You know, it's the spiritual versus the, you know, transcending the biology that these guys have a fantasy of what they think our future.
They want to rewrite the DNA of our faith.
Right.
Think about it. They want to rewrite once you connect us from our soul, you got us. So they want to rewrite the DNA of our faith. And at the foundation, when we started forming the institution of science, we were trying to figure out, like, what are the things that are going to be critical to the future? So leadership, critical to the future. Look what they did to our kids in these universities. Look at what they're doing to our kids in these schools. I think every parent that values life, values their children, should take their kids out of those schools.
Do you think that one day, I mean, it's not that, you know, I'm expecting you to look through a crystal ball, but a lot of those institutions, a lot of those systems are going to be dinosaurs, you know?
Well, but let's forget about them being dinosaurs, but look at the damage that they've done. We have to go back and recapture these kids. We have to put new language into the system. We have to push it through the system so they can find it, so they can try to embrace it. My father told me one day when he was alive, he says, Kevin, you know, you're being radicalized. And I understood what he was saying because I was learning so much about, you know, Black history, African history, globalization, you know, traveling to Africa. He said, you have to be very careful because you could be radicalized and it will strip you of what you're learning. You have to be able to use it in a positive way. And so what happens with our children, because we've turned them over to someone else, they've been radicalized against us. So we have to bring them back to form. We have to bring them back to where they need to be, bring them back home, put their feet on the soil, right? And say, this is what this is about. Let me tell you what you're going to be responsible for. Let me tell you what the world is getting ready to look like. Here is some of the things. Like I ask people, how many at home, how many books do you have your kids read a week? How many times did you take your kids to hear a lecture of a great mind and give them a better perspective of the world? That's what I was given. So I'm saying, let's take all of that. Let's bring our kids back in and let's reshape their minds. We still have time. And I think they can help to lead us out of this chaos that we're living in. Yeah, so that's why the foundation is so important. That's why all of these organizations that are doing the work are so important. But we cannot, I just want to leave this with this. We cannot turn ourselves into them. And that's very easy. We have to watch it. The devil is very clever. He's very clever. He'll put people in your midst, he'll elevate them, and then they'll be the face of your movement. You got to people got to get more sophisticated. Absolutely. You got to take a deep breath. And I'm telling you, I'm starting to see a trend because movements, that's why I never wanted to embrace the term movement, because I knew how tricky it was and how it can easily be infiltrated. I would have rather just used the term loose federations of organizations fighting against freedom, fighting for freedom. But see, when you say movement, they can always identify who they want to level up and be your voice in your organization. You got to be, that's my warning. I want you to show this. That is my warning to the people in this movement. Keep your eyes open. Absolutely. Don't always look for a God, because God is in you. You know, God is in you. The Spirit of God is in you. It's not up there, and it surely ain't in your churches, and it's surely in your mosque. But if you go to your mosque and your church with truth in your heart, you can transform those institutions too.
Wow. Kevin D. Jenkins, I thank you so much for being the extraordinary man that you are, the light that you are shedding and putting out into the world that we need now more than ever. It is extraordinary, the work that you're doing. And I am so honored and excited to walk this moment in time with you, you know. Thank you. And let our listeners know how to connect with you, what you think they can do, anything.
Well, you can find me on ZelenkoFreedomFoundation.org. You can find me on Twitter, Kev D. Jenkins at 1963. You can find me on Instagram at Kev D. Jenkins 1. I'm probably still one of the most censored people like Bobby. I mean, I don't get any traction, but you can find me there. You know, they're designing a new website for me now because I have so much content. I told them, go ahead and do it. I just don't have the time because I'm either on a plane or speaking somewhere or working on a project. But, you know, just know that I'm there. And if you can get on Zelenko Freedom Foundation and join us, if you can join us over at my Twitter and Instagram and I think I got the same handle on Truth Social and all of that stuff. But just know that I just want to leave these last words for people. Love wins. That's it.
Kevin, thank you again so much. Really have loved talking. You could spend hours with you, and I hope to see you in person.
Well, when I'm in California, I'll look you up. First of all, I'm gonna buy your book I'm buying your book when I get off the phone. So
thank you so much. Thank you for watching, everyone, and be sure to subscribe to DailyClout so you never miss new content like what you just saw today. See you again soon.
Thank you.